What would you do if a cop looked you in the eye and said, "You're not under arrest," but still kept you there? That sentence can trick you into giving away your rights in seconds. If you answer the wrong way, you can turn a casual stop into a full investigation. Hit subscribe right now, because what I'm about to show you could keep you from talking yourself into handcuffs. And like this video now, so you can find it fast when you actually need it, here's what you're about to learn. The one question that forces the whole moment to get clear. The exact sentence that shuts down phishing questions. The line that blocks consent searches before they start. And the move almost nobody makes when the officer finally says you can go. Most people have no idea how fast a normal stop can turn into a search, a seizure, or a charge. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern is always the same. The officer sounds calm, the driver sounds nervous, then the driver keeps talking, keeps explaining, keeps trying to be helpful, and suddenly the officer has more facts, more time, and more reasons to dig deeper. Here's the reality. You're not under arrest does not always mean you should relax. Sometimes it means the officer wants you to think this is casual, so you stop protecting yourself. Let me show you exactly why this matters so much. When you're stopped, your biggest danger is confusion. You don't know if you're free to leave. You don't know if the questions are optional. You don't know if saying yes will help or destroy you. So you do what most people do. You start filling the silence. You explain where you came from. You explain where you're going. You explain why you look nervous. You explain why there's a bag in the back seat. And every extra word gives the officer more to work with. Here's the reality. Cops are allowed to ask questions, but you do not have to turn yourself into their best witness. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. Your job in that moment is not to win them over. Your job is to find out whether you are being detained, protect your silence, and never give away consent by accident. The first thing you do is force the officer to say which world you're in, a detention or a voluntary conversation. You look at the officer and say this: "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Those exact 9 words. Memorize that line. Say it calmly, say it once, then stop talking. This is 100% legal. You're not being rude. You are asking for clarity. And that clarity changes everything. Why does this work? Because the officer now has to pick a lane. If you're free to leave, the encounter is supposed to end unless you choose to stay. If you're being detained, then the officer is admitting this is not just friendly small talk. That matters because your next move depends on the answer. If you skip this question, you stay stuck in fog. Bad way. Most drivers say, I'm not hiding anything. What's going on?" Then the officer keeps them talking, keeps them standing there, and turns a short stop into a long one. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Then the officer has to make the situation clear. Watch what happens when you ask it. If the officer says, "You're free to go," now you know this is voluntary. If the officer says, "You're being detained," now you know not to keep chatting like this is no big deal. That one sentence cuts through the whole game. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it exposes whether the officer really had a reason to hold you or was just hoping you'd stay and cooperate. There's legal backup for this too. In Florida versus Bostic, the Supreme Court said the real question is whether a reasonable person would feel free to decline the officer's requests or end the encounter. In plain English, if you're not truly free to say no or walk away, then this is not just a friendly chat. In Florida versus Royer, the court made clear police can't turn a brief stop into something bigger. Simple English again. They can't just stretch the moment because they feel like it. Let me show you exactly how people get trapped here. The officer says, "You're not under arrest." And most drivers hear, "Relax, this is harmless." Wrong. Not under arrest is not the same as free to leave. Those are different things. Listen closely because this is critical. If you only remember one line from this whole video, remember this one. Am I being detained or am I free to leave? Not what's this about? Not did I do something wrong? Not I'm happy to cooperate. That last one is how people volunteer their way into searches and statements they can't take back. It forces the encounter into legal daylight instead of a gray zone. Have you ever been asked something like this during a stop? Drop a comment below and tell me if you think you'd remember that line under pressure. Now, let's talk about what to do if the officer makes it clear you are being detained. This is where people wreck their own case. They think, if I just explain myself, this will go away. No. Once you are detained, your mouth becomes the biggest risk in the whole scene. Here's exactly what you say. "I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and I want a lawyer." Word for word. Memorize that line, then stop talking. This part scares people because they think staying silent makes them look guilty. But talking is what gets innocent people buried. You forget a detail. You guess wrong on the time. You try to sound calm and come off rehearsed. You say you only had 1 drink, then a camera shows 2. You say you were just at your friend's house, then the officer starts asking who that friend is, what the address is. how long you were there, and why you're sweating. Every answer opens 5 more questions. Bad way. Most drivers say, I can explain everything. Then they hand the officer a pile of statements that can be twisted, compared, and used against them. Good way. Smart drivers say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and I want a lawyer. Then the officer gets a lot less free evidence. This is 100% legal. You do not have to perform for the officer. You do not have to solve the mystery for them. You do not have to guess your way through a high-pressure interview on the side of the road. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because silence cannot be misquoted the way nervous talking can. And yes, say the lawyer part too. That matters. People love saying, I know my rights, but then they keep talking for 20 more minutes. Don't do that. If you want the protection, you have to be clear. You have to say it out loud. Then you actually have to stay quiet. Not mostly quiet. Quiet. No stories. No jokes. No, can I just tell you one thing? Nothing. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos and one pattern jumps out every time. The people who think they can talk their way out usually talk their way deeper in. The people who shut it down early give the officer far less to work with. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings and basic criminal defense practice. You're not helping yourself by volunteering details during detention. You are feeding the file. Watch what happens when you do this right. The whole energy changes. The officer may still ask questions. The officer may still pressure you. But now the record is cleaner. Your position is clear. You asked if you were detained. You were. Then you invoked silence and counsel. That is clean. That is strong. That is defensible. And if the officer keeps fishing, your lawyer has something much better to work with later. The next move is the line that blocks the fastest shortcut into a search. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Word for word. Memorize that line too. Say it calmly. Say it clearly. Then stop there. Do not explain why. Do not argue. Do not debate law on the roadside. Just make your answer unmistakable. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. A lot of searches happen because people talk themselves into sounding cooperative. The officer says, you don't mind if I take a look, right? And the driver hears a casual question. But that sure can be the entire case. Once you consent, you've handed over one of your biggest protections. Schneckloth vs. Bustamante is the big case here. In plain English, if your consent is seen as voluntary, that search can be valid even if you didn't fully understand how bad saying yes was. That's why your refusal matters so much. Bad way. Most drivers say, yeah, go ahead, I've got nothing to hide. Then the search starts and whatever gets found becomes their problem. Good way. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then the officer has to rely on actual legal grounds instead of your permission. If the officer already has legal cause to search, your refusal won't magically stop it, but it still protects you in court. Either way, there's no upside to saying yes. None. Zero. You gain nothing by making their job easier. Your tone is everything. Calm voice, respectful words. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Former police officers have confirmed this works because clear, calm refusal is much harder to spin. This also protects you from the little trap questions like, can you pop the trunk? Those are not tiny requests. Those are doorways. Once you open them, you can't pretend you didn't. In Rodriguez v. United States, the Supreme Court said police can't stretch a stop longer than needed. Your silence and your refusal help keep the stop tied to its real purpose. 90% of drivers don't know what's coming next. Drop a comment saying, I'm still here, and hit like for more. If the officer says you're free to leave, you need to actually leave. Sounds obvious, right? But people stay. They keep chatting. They keep trying to clear their name. Don't do that. Here's exactly what you say. Thank you, officer. I'm leaving now. Then you leave calmly. This sounds simple, but it is huge. The moment the encounter becomes voluntary, every second you stay is a gift to them. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and this mistake shows up again and again. People win the moment, then hand it back. Take the exit and don't grow new branches of the investigation. Florida vs. Bostick, Royer, Schneckloth, and Rodriguez provide the legal foundation. In simple English, know your status, stop talking, never consent, and leave the moment you're legally free to go. Imagine a night stop where the officer says you're not under arrest. Don't volunteer where you're going or let them search. Ask if you're free, invoke silence, refuse consent, and leave. That creates boundaries. Next week, I'm revealing what to say when cops claim they smell weed. Subscribe now because power looks calm and controlled. Smash that like button and tell me which line you're memorizing first. Stay safe.